given that Grendel and Grendel's mother are these kind of like very grounded monsters. Hard to defeat, yes, but they're grounded monsters, whereas the dragon is more of a reflection of who we are rather than Grendel and Grendel's mother, who we see as the other thing, that the monster that lives in the darkness, that thing that goes bump in the night sort of thing. I feel like Carl Jung would see the dragon as like our shadow self, right? That greed and hoarding nature that we have. I'm going to look at my notes down here to keep this thing going on. So he transforms the tale from a youthful triumph into a meditation of mortality, greed, and the inevitability of entropy of all things. Awesome. Now, the dragon is referred to in two ways in the actual poem itself. I'm going to use Tom Shippey's translation of this because it's the most recent one I've read. I think I have the page set up right here. For the first part, this is where he is referred to as Draca. This is line 2 to 11, the second part of that line. And it basically says, if I can find the right line, 50 winters he defended it well. Now an old guardian of the homeland, until the dark nights a dragon began to reign, who guarded his hoard in the high hall, a strong stone barrow. Beneath it lay a path unknown to men, inside it went some man or other, creeping in close to the heathen hoard. His hand seized readily a treasure goblet shining with gold. The dragon did not hide his anger later, though tricked in sleep by the skill of the thief, that they found out those who lived in the land once he was enraged. Now, it refers to him as the dragon, and in Old English side of it, we see that it says Draca. And now, if we go to the next one, which is line 2343, now, this is the 7th time I've made this video. Sorry, this is the 7th time I've attempted to make this video. The first time I tried, I got all the pages wrong. I have these little tabby things, and I still got the pages wrong because, stupidity. So we are looking for page number 43, where he's referred to as a Wyrm, W-Y-R-D. And the seafarer, the splendid prince, was to come to an end of life in this world, and the Wyrm as well, though he had long held the wealth of the hoard. So we've seen this dragon referred to in two different ways, as Draca, dragon, or Wyrm, essentially, which basically means like a serpent. And again, that ties into the Christianization of all these things as well, because, the serpent of the Garden of Eden and all that. And just to give an idea of how big this dragon was, is referred to as being 50 feet long. But here we are again. The king himself recovered his senses, drew his battle Seax, sharp and bitter-edged, which he carried over his armour. Protector of the weathers, he cut the Wyrm in two. So he's able to cut the Wyrm in two with a knife. A Seax is a knife. Do a bit of research, you'll find that they can range from like 9-inch blades to 21-inch blades, which is effectively a short sword. So if we can argue that it's probably somewhere between there, like a standard size Seax, the neck of this animal is maybe this big. It's like just a big anaconda, essentially. 50 feet, neck like this. If we look at the front cover of Tolkien's translation, we have a depiction of the dragon on here, and of course its depiction is very much snake-like, except for the head and these stupid little wings that are here. Idiotic little... I mean, how would you fly with those little things? He does have legs, although I don't think the dragon is described as having legs in the poem, but we always envision dragons with legs. But he is more of a serpent-type dragon. Think like Chinese dragons, that kind of thing, I think works really well in terms of trying to picture what this thing would look like. If you're able to cut it in half with a freaking knife, how big can it be? And the fact that it lived inside a barrow, as was in those lines, it lives in a barrow. Now, the barrow is a burial mound. These burial mounds weren't made for dragons. They were made for people. Even the biggest ones we have aren't vast enough to hold a humongous dragon. When you're thinking dragons like Smaug or the Game of Thrones dragons, right? These things are absolutely immense. We're not talking that size here. Moving on to the next bit. The dragon is an old dread, skyborn foe, has guarded a vast forgotten hoard. The Barrow for 300 years. The hoard is the accumulated wealth of a vanished race. So, he'd been sitting in this thing for 300 years, just sleeping. Until a slave, fleeing his master's wrath, pilfers a golden goblet. Again, we got to that part, the treasure, the goblet, gold thingy. Now, that really is kind of like an inspiration, I guess, for Smaug, as well as Fafnir, which we'll get to in a minute. He's able to... the slave took the cup, and the dragon knew, and he woke him up. And then he realized something was missing. And he searched all across his hoard trying to find what was missing. Couldn't find what was missing. Knew it was missing, didn't know what it was, whatever. Left the barrows, flew around it a while trying to find the thief. Realised that he'd been duped by a thief. Not awesome, because in my notes here I got the dragon caused the dragon to awaken and unleash indiscriminate terror. Now, he burned everything, villages, homes, even Beowulf's hall was reduced to ash and smoke, as my notes say. The dragon's rampage, is not a target attack, but a campaign of indiscriminate terror. It's a force of nature unleashed, showing how an insignificant imbalance can lead to a catastrophic unraveling. Now, this is when it means like insignificant imbalance. I mean, this dragon had a massive hoard of gold, and someone stole a cup. It might have been about this size, just less valuable. But he knew, and it's his level of greed which did that. And that, of course, brings us to Fafnir from the Volsunga saga, right? So Sigurd killed Fafnir. Now, Fafnir was a guy who could transform into dragon or worm, serpent form. And Loki killed Otter, his brother, who could turn into an otter who was eating a fish. Loki killed him with a stone, not really realising what it was. They then skinned him, and once they realised what happened, the father of Otter wanted them to fill the skin with gold and then cover the skin until there was nothing left. You couldn't see anything else with gold, so they basically went to a dwarf, and Vari, I think if I remember his name was, took all his gold, including a ring, which is another thing that appears in the Volsunga saga, and of course it's where Tolkien got the idea for the One Ring. If you want me to do more videos on the similarities or kind of like comparisons between like Beowulf, the old sagas, and Lord of the Rings, just leave a comment below and I'll put something together, I guess. Anyway, the dragon ended up killing his father. This is all about Fafnir again. Killed his father and took the gold to his little hiding place, which was at the foot of the tree Yggdrasil. And that's where Sigurd killed him. Now, of course, this dragon also had poison, but Sigurd's armor or whatever it was, I think it was a certain type chainmail, protected him from that. Now, the dragon arrives at the end of the book. Obviously, Beowulf had been king for 50 years at this point, and he'd ruled really well. He'd been a good king. Gold giver, ring giver, whatever you want to call them. But he arrives at the end, which some people think it was kind of like foreshadowing the end of the Yeats and the end of Beowulf, which could mean that when Beowulf kills Grendel and they sing a song of Sigurd, Fafnir's bane, I'm wondering if that was added to foreshadow the end, to foreshadow the fact that, Beowulf will eventually fight a dragon. Of course, in this case, he dies, but that does make me wonder. Of course, fate weird. Fate is a big thing in Beowulf. It comes up all the freaking time. Every time he fights a monster, he fights Grendel, he fights Grendel's mother, he fights a dragon, he always says that he will leave it in the hands of the god. Of God, not the gods, but whoever's destined to win will win. In this case, they both died. Not unlike, I guess, Thor and Jormungandr in Ragnarok, right? Thor dies from the poison, even though he kills Jormungandr. Oh, dragon as Beowulf's final fatal antagonist symbolizes the mortality itself and the ultimate confrontation with death. Again, fate. This is a man as well who it was pre-Viking age, and it's set in the early 6th century, which was pre-Christian age in that part of the world. They may well have known about Christianity because Roman Empire wasn't that far away. But they weren't Christian yet, and Christianity didn't kind of like proliferate in Scandinavia for a long time. It wasn't until, oh my God, what, the 12th century, 10th century, 11th century, around that time when Christianity really started to take hold in Scandinavia. And we are talking about early 6th century here. But yeah. Oh my God, it reminds us that the strongest can succumb to the relentless march of time. Everything comes down to time. Time is the one thing we cannot defeat. Power, if not wielded wisely, can attract the worst and corrupt the best. Beowulf held a peace for 50 years and by all accounts was a good king. He could have taken the throne earlier. After Hygelac, his king, after he died, he offered it to Beowulf. But Beowulf refused because Hygelac's son, Heardred, it was his birthright to become king. Now, Hygelac offered it to Beowulf because he thought he'd be a better king. But Beowulf didn't want to jump the queue, as it were. So he just became an advisor to Heardred, whatever it is. I don't know. I mean, pronunciation, I'm still working on it. I'm learning. Again, I'm learning. So it's like if you guys are realizing I've missed something with regards to a dragon or anything like that, please jump in the comments below and I will happily read through your things because I want to learn more. Beowulf, an old king, faces an ancient foe, time, inevitability, and entropy. So when I say old foe, I don't mean like the dragon had been sitting around for 300 years, so it is an old foe, or even Fafnir or whatever that. Time and inevitable entropy. He couldn't stop time. No, he's an old pre-Viking, but an old Viking, right? So he doesn't want to die an old man in bed. You know, he wants to die in battle. You know, because we are talking again 6th century, so Odin, Orthan, fucking Wodnaz, whoever you want to talk about, whoever you want to think about, he wanted to go there, whatever the equivalent of Valhalla was back then. If it was Valhalla, it might have been Valhalla, or Val, depending on your pronunciation. Now I have a note here from this book, the book that I've been reading a lot of recently, which is the Chambers book on the introduction to the study of the poem, and it says he's got the dragon under the non-historical elements part of the book. Non-historical elements. Scholar R.W. Chambers views the dragon as a non-historical element, a literary embellishment. And here I was thinking dragon in the room. Who knew? So, conclusion. Profound, multi-layered symbol. The dragon is far more than a monster. The enduring metaphor, its fierce rage born of transgressions and fueled by the ancient greed, remains a potent metaphor for the anxieties that consume the Anglo-Saxons and continues to define our age. One where our politicians are governed not by the people who voted for them, but by the greed and ego, but by their greed and ego. Politically, we're living in a really weird world, and I don't really want to get into the whole politics thing because I don't want to put politics on this channel, but sometimes you just can't help yourself. Maybe the Dragon's Hoard wasn't just gold. It was an echo of our vanity and our vulnerability. I mean, we're still chasing that hoard, are we not? You know, 1,000 years later, how many videos have you watched on YouTube of wealth accumulation? I mean, how many of you out there watching this have seen a fucking Alex Hormozy video about how to build a business, how to make money, how to accumulate personal wealth? We're all still trying to do it. Whether you're trying to do it for your own personal greed or to provide for others, we're all still trying to do it. And whether you are trying to develop it for your own personal greed or for others, that's the defining characteristic, right? The accumulation of wealth for one's own need leads you to ruin, but wealth for the benefit of others could lead to greatness, like Hrothgar and Beowulf. That's it, right? I mean, the accumulation of wealth is not a bad thing. It just depends on your reasons for accumulating that wealth. In the dragon, it was all about greed and vanity. It was all about, this is mine, I want it. You have something I want, I'm going to take it, and I'm just going to hold on to it. I'm not going to do anything with it. I mean, ultimately, that gold to the dragon was utterly worthless. It meant nothing. He just wanted it. it was worth more to people because they could trade it. They could use it to buy things, right? And it's the same with us now. We can accumulate wealth and we can buy things. But when you get to the point of wealth where, you know, like the kind of Elon Musks and the Jeff Bezos of the world, it's like, what do you do with all that money? Well, in this case, I suppose what Elon Musk is doing is flying fucking space rockets into the space and trying to get to Mars. Jeff Bezos forces his drivers not to take any breaks or to go for a piss. I mean, he could literally just hire more drivers. You have the money, dude. Do that. Again, politics. Oh, that last bit. The accumulation of wealth for one's own need will lead you to ruin, but wealth for the benefit of others could lead to greatness, like Hrothgar and Beowulf. Unless, of course, you're a fucking socialist, in which case, go fuck yourself. And like wealth, power attracts the worst and corrupts the best, like I said earlier. Thank you, Ragnar Lothbrok, for that line from your TV show. Anyway, yeah, that's my take on the dragon. Not huge, not a big hulking thing like we see in fiction nowadays, but small enough to be cut in half with a knife. A hoarder, a destroyer, a burner of things, and a taker of whatever it wants. It hoards and it accumulates for no apparent reason. Anyway, the YouTube algorithm thinks you'll like this video. You have a great day. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not subscribed. Like the video if you like the video, and I'll see you in the next one.